So, welcome everybody. How are you doing today? Welcome. I'm really glad that you are here. And today I wanted to share with you a little bit about my own story of how I met my teacher Papaji and about my own experience of presence. So, of course, it's a really long story, so I'm not going to try to tell you everything today, but maybe just the most important parts of that. So first of all, for a really long time, I didn't even know that I was seeking. It was only when I was studying Tai Chi, when I was practicing Tai Chi, and I saw this video of a Chinese master that I realized that he knows something, that he has something that I am interested in. I just don't know what it was. I didn't know. So eventually my search led me to become a devotee of Mother Mira, and after a little while I started to sit in these long meditations, and they were beautiful, blissful, expanded states. However, every time I would get up to actually do my life, I would experience tremendous suffering. And so it went between bliss and suffering and bliss and suffering, and eventually this dichotomy, this duality became so intense that I remember lying down and really feeling, like I really need for it to stop. I need to find a way. I need to find a way out of this. And I remember seeing this thought that arose that said, I need to find somebody who will show me beyond, what is beyond this. What is beyond this bliss and suffering. And within a few weeks, really, a satsang flyer arrived in the house where I was living, and I have never heard about satsang before. I didn't know what it was. And there I was reading about this Western woman that didn't spend all her life in a monastery, that was obviously awake, and there she was sharing that awakening with others. And there was Gangaji, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. I need to go and see that. I need to go and check that out. And when I went to the first meeting, that the beauty of what was there, the beauty of everybody who came, and just the atmosphere of it, and the love that I experienced were so overwhelming that I became really scared and really terrified of that. And I decided, this is it, I'm not going back anymore. This is just too much. I don't think I can really handle that. Luckily, she was traveling back then. She was staying for about a month in an area, and so there were several meetings. And after a little time, I went back and I had this amazing experience of my mind just falling away and falling into its source. And I remember being so thrilled and so happy about it, and writing Gangaji a letter and sharing it with her. And then she invited me to sit with her, and she asked me to read this letter to everybody. And I remember sitting there and just really seeing the love and the beauty and the spaciousness of presence, our true nature that we are. And somewhere in the midway through the meetings, I suddenly saw a picture of Papaji. And of course that picture always has been there. Of course she always had it by her side, but that was the first time I saw it. And in that moment of really seeing, right, I recognized that this is my teacher. Papaji is my teacher, and I have to go and see him. I have to go to India. So 6 months later, I was in India, and seeing Papaji in person was so amazing, because that recognition of, wow, what we really think, what we really are longing for, what we really are looking for is actually available. It's possible. It's right here. This is the embodiment of that. Right here, available. However, I remember that the first few weeks in satsang I spent sitting in the arrogance of the ego that already had so much spiritual experience. There were so many things that I have already seen, or so many things that I have experienced, and so there I was sitting, in this amazing grace of satsang, sitting, really holding myself back and thinking, well, here I am, what can you show me? What are you going to give me? And of course, luckily, through grace and with some help, I recognized that, what I really need is I really need to fully devote myself to Papaji, and I really need to follow every impulse that arises in my heart, and stop caring about the mind that has its own thoughts and its own agenda. And I have written a letter to Papaji, and he said, you have come here to know your true nature. That's what you are here for. And I remember one time asking Papaji to sit close to him when he was teaching. And he said, okay. So there I was sitting next to him, and with my eyes closed while he was speaking with people, and deeply, deeply listening from within, and recognizing that everything he's saying is true. That I can fully and completely trust everything he says, because everything is really true. And so something changed within me, and that in that moment something dropped, and something relaxed, and something opened, and the next thing I know, this humongous fear of death is arising, and of course, everything is trying to suppress that. And I remember sensing that fear, and yet deciding to go out for dinner that evening, and going out with a friend to have dinner, and just trying to keep up with conversation and feeling that fear. And then after dinner I walk out on the street. It's a busy, it's India, busy street, and suddenly there's these 3 young Indian girls, and they silently, with no words, they come up to me one by one, and each has a little flower, and each is giving me a little flower. And in that moment my heart broke open, and I realized that what I need is to really let that fear be here. And I went home, and I quickly ran home almost, and I sat there and I said, okay, let me have it, let it have me, whichever way we go, right? And so I remember just sitting there and allowing this fear to move through, and of course there was that everything is happening very, very quick, and there was that impulse to run to Papaji and to be at his feet, and then seeing with my eyes, my own eyes, as the world is disappearing, the world that as we know it disappears, and as this body disappears also, and eventually all there is that deep, quiet, powerful stillness. And of course I can't speak about that, because there's nobody there to speak about that. However, then later, that recognition, coming back into the sense of the body, and the world appearing again, and this very blissful sitting there. However, that coming back with that deep sense of recognition that everything is okay the way it is, that we are all taken care of, that everything is taken care of, that we really don't need to worry about anything. And I remember writing this letter to Papaji, and of course that sitting took many, many hours of just sitting in bliss and in this energy streaming and just in that recognition, and then writing to Papaji about it, and then walking into the satsang hall next morning, and recognizing that everything is me, that everything arises within me, that Papaji arises within me, that Papaji is me also, that nothing is different, that everything is who we are.